Could you comment, please, on a related issue that some of our financial institutions are too large to fail?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. Could you comment on a related observation that some of our financial institutions are too large to fail?
Yeah, if I had a little trouble hearing, let me repeat it to you. Could I comment on the fact that it's been said that some of our financial institutions, you know this, are too large to fail? And we have a number of converts here, by the way, about this idea. Alan Greenspan, I think it was, who was quoted as saying, well, if they're too large to fail, they're too large. Break them up. And we should do that. We've allowed these, and by the way, the concentration of banking institutions banking has gotten more concentrated in this period because banks are all taking each other over and getting bigger and bigger. And it's a very real problem. And at some point we have to bite the bullet of saying, there's going to be we're just going to break them up. It may sound extreme, but the railroad trusts were broken up, the oil trusts were broken up, and we ended up a much better nation for it. It became very politically popular to do. Theodore Roosevelt basically was elected for his full term for being a trust buster, and I don't see any reason that we can't take that on. Now, I look with some jaundiced eye on when I talk about character and courage. Those aren't the first words that come to my mind when I look at the Congress. Let alone long-term horizon. Although the horizon just went from a month to 2 years, I'll give them that, because it's just starting now. But that's just a moment in time. So I would say figure out ways to break them up so we don't have the problems. It can be done. It has been done, and it's been done to the benefit of our nation and our society. And nobody will like it. I mean, the screaming and the lobbyists will get rich, but they always get rich. I mean, I don't know what to do about that. I don't like the way the role of money in our politics today, and that makes it extreme. But basically, I'm afraid I don't want to get into politics too much. Actually, I'd like to, but I don't think it's appropriate. I think the politics has gotten so intransigent and bullheaded and intolerant and mean-spirited and money-driven. And thank God we don't have to watch any. I know I can say this. Does anyone want to disagree with me? I say, thank God we don't have to watch any more of those ghastly commercials. My only political comment of the night, and I batted 1,000.
You started off today by talking about that the growth of the value of the market was basically the yield that it was giving plus the economic growth of the country. And given that, then I'd like to turn to a related topic. I saw an interview you gave on CNN this morning. It was a taped video where even though you were saying that some of the economies outside the U.S. were going to grow greater than the U.S., you were arguing against putting assets in international funds. And I didn't quite understand that. I remain confused after your discussion today, because it would seem to me that if you're saying that the growth is going to be greater abroad, that would be a place where one would get higher return over time if you had an appropriate index fund. Sure,
that's a very good and a very fair question. And I didn't see that CNN interview, but it was quite long, and I think they taped it maybe and had showed it in different places. But anyway, I did say that, and not as strongly. I mean, it's not so much that I'm against international indexing. I'm not. Let me give you my position. First of all, I believe it's somewhat overrated, because U.S. corporations, what we call U.S. corporations, have 50% of their revenues and 50% of their sales coming from abroad. So if you invest in America, you're investing in the world. And you're also investing, I think importantly, you earn your money in dollars, you spend your money in dollars, and to have your assets valued in dollars eliminates the risk that currencies will do A, B, or C. Could be a risk that pays off, could be a risk of loss. So that's number one. Number two, I divide the world then into developed, I don't know how much of this they got on. One thing I'm sure they left out, into developed countries and emerging markets. The developed countries dominate. In very round numbers, the U.S. is 40 to 45% of the world market. The emerging markets are probably now 15%. Let's call it 45 and 15 for the fun of it. So developed countries are 40%, probably more like 35%, non-U.S. developed countries. So you divide it into those two groups, and you say, well, let's look at those developed countries. Well, the largest is Britain, and they're in worse shape than the U.S., and that's saying something. The second largest is Germany. They seem to be, is Japan, I think, in market cap. Second largest is Japan, and they're in a terrible financial box that they've been in for 12 years now. No, 18 years now. The third is probably Germany. They may be even with Japan. Third is Germany, which I think is a pretty progressive, well-run economy. And fourth, my favorite, is France, where they don't go to work. Their objective when they graduate from college is to retire. And you saw the strikes and stuff. It's not a good... What is there about the developed nations of the world where anybody would want to put their money? And I can understand the emerging market argument very easily. They will grow faster. And I'll give you my kind of summing up in just a sec. But it's going to be, it's very difficult to appraise national government strengths, strength of the underlying community and society, the validity of the financial figures you get, things like that. And so they have a certain amount of risk that is probably greater than those similar kind of risks in the U.S. I mean, we aren't without them, but I think they're greater there. And then the other thing, and this is by far the most important thing, and that is the stock market knows all this. In other words, you see a company growing at 15% and a company shrinking, and the company that's growing at 15% is probably selling at 40 times earnings, and the company that's shrinking is selling at 2 times earnings. The market knows, and it's not certain by any means. As a matter of fact, it's probably more likely that the company selling at 2 times earnings and not going anywhere is a better buy than the company that's selling at 40 times earnings. In other words, the stock market is a great arbitrageur between the present and the future. So everybody knows what you and I know about foreign markets. So the best bet, I think, is always that the developed markets and the emerging markets in the U.S., the best bet is that all will do pretty much the same over the next decade. That won't be correct, but I don't think we know how to pick which is best. So if someone said, however, importantly, it's not that I'm against doing it. If you disagree with me, my God, I'm wrong 3 or 4 times at least every day. I wouldn't put more than 20% of my capital in non-U.S. markets. Maybe half of it in emerging, overweight the emerging sector a little bit, and half of it in developed non-U.S. markets. I don't think that's a dumb thing to do, but I don't think you're going to change. I don't think that's going to make the difference. I mean, and the other thing I keep thinking about, I don't mean to keep emphasizing, which I touched on a little bit, the idea of how important cost is. But if you can pick up 1 percentage point in return, that would be a tidy pickup in return. Just go to mutual funds that are 1% cheaper, and the return will be there for the taking. You won't even worry about it. So put that in an overall mix, and it is, in fact, international funds are significantly more expensive. And I would definitely, if you want to do that international thing, 10 and 10, I would definitely use index funds because they're the only ones that are even reasonably priced over there. Half of 1% a year, maybe compared to 2% a year, all in.